Mina igama lami nguMaXHOSA Namlotshwa. Ngisebenza la eMaXHOSA. Indaba yeshow yona angali ibistressa kakhulu because bekungalalwa singathola ukuphumula, but mina I'm happy because si-create umsebenzi omningi kakhulu, and then kula sizothola khona amathuba amaningi wama-customer nazo zonke izinto, at least kuzoba right, sibe nomsebenzi nje sisebenze siphumelele.
Like a magician, you kind of show your, should I say, your neat tricks, and you just say, okay, I can do this, and you showing them that they don't know the thought behind it or the thought process behind it, or the the ways of doing it at the background. And yeah, it's like a Houdini vibes basically.
Yeah,
I drew inspiration for the set mainly from my creative director, just trying to pick his brain and understand what he meant by the entire collection. Why A.S.T.O? Why call it that? And the process of finding a name obviously will stem from experience and what you at least saw out there. So it's something that he has seen through our people's lives, heritage, our culture, and how that has influenced fashion and how he can relate that to fashion. So
the most challenging aspect of this set design was probably the timing of it, in terms of how the plans were rolled out, and from inception to concept ideation till the very end, there was a lot of back and forth. So it was really hard to keep a constant flow, especially within the group, as we kept changing ideas and it wasn't a flowing thing. But I think in the end we managed to just put our differences aside and get together and join one force.
For abantu abamnyama imina for i-culture yabantu abamnyama, ubuntu babo, isintu sabantu abamnyama. Mawugqokele impahla uhamba uya kwezinye indawo mhlambe kwamanye amazwe, kubonisa iAfrika ukuthi iAfrika ngathi ivukile Afrika, kusho ukuthi saseyiyo ngoba ngempela le mpahla lezi zibonisa ubuntu bethu abantu abamnyama.
We are not moving away from the traditional heritage, but we are adding it into, let's say, how would a modern Xhosa or African person, let's say, we don't say Xhosa, we're going to say African, right? How would a modern African look like? Yes, they will have things of the new global world, but they will have reference of our culture. So now our culture is now living on your super lush fabrics like your silk, right? We're printing on 100% silk. That's as well taking something that's very new in making of the fiber, as well as something very traditional in terms of the pattern work. So silk as a fabric is very old, the pattern work is very old, but now these two worlds are colliding somewhere, right? It's like taking the West and Africa and colliding them somewhere. So time traveling for me, or even A.S.T.O as a theme, as the African space travelers, is we're traveling through space, through cultures. That's my take. We are taking, we are making this world very small. You know, like we are taking references around Africa, and we're adapting them as well into the West, and taking some West ideas and putting them into Southern Africa, you know.
It's the same thing with design, where you think of European design and you think of it as like sort of top tier, but when you think about African design, you don't see the beauty in it, you don't see the innovation in it. And I think that's what A.S.T.O is. It's about how we are the ones who, our ideas, our sort of our creativity, our creations, that those are the, like, it's this world unknown, right? It requires discovery, it requires innovation. These are things that when Westerners came to Africa, they saw these structures, they saw these creations, and they thought aliens came to Africa and gave us these ideas, rather than being like Africans came up with these ideas. So I think it's a bit of a play of like, oh, Africans traveled space and time, and we came up with we learned all these things, and then we brought them to Africa. But it's more about the world outside, sort of shifting the ideas of what African design is and what African creation is.
Wabona ukuthi into mawusayiphethe ngezandla awuyiboni kahle la seyigqoka umuntu ila ibona ukuthi hayi cha izinto esizenzayo zinhle kwamampela kwamampela vele zinhle hayi idumile shemi MAXHOSA nase TV yiyo enema uyababona nabantu abayigqokile ukuthi bayazizwa ukuthi bangabubani yazi ngathi bahamba ezulwini.
We've been very traditional and very loyal to culture and heritage so far. This is probably about the first time where it is still loyal to culture and it's still loyal to heritage, but it's sort of out of the box. You know, it's rooted in something other than just ubuntu, you know what I mean? Personally, I like contrasting features. Like, I like men who are more beautiful than they are handsome. I like women who are more handsome than they are beautiful. I like sort of shifting those standards. I think it's something about African features. I like also focusing on like African features, like cheekbones and like dark skin and even light skin and thickness. Like,
Yeah.
I think our brand should reflect the continent that it comes from rather than what we think that models should look like. I think we should represent the people that we have on this continent.
Yeah, man, I think Laduma, or the concept really came from us perhaps like exploring new concepts in terms of the patterns that we have already. It's been a while, man, that Laduma has made suggestions that our patterns should evolve to some extent, because he does have a blueprint. It's just that now, how do we do the edits, you know? And so with each collection, even from last year, that's when we began to implement the 3D aesthetic. I think with A.S.T.O, the idea was there. It's just that like we wanted to kind of put more emphasis on silhouettes and also like perhaps the narrative behind it.
Camera, please catch me telling that guy, go to your office.
You are disturbing us.
You are disturbing us. Go to your office. Say to
With the
go to your office. Go to your office.
I thought anyone in this company is
Go to your office. We are not finished. Consequentially, we are not finished. The clothes are not ready.
But I hear you've been through worse.
Ish.
You've done it, you've pulled it off.
No, believe me, this is worse because I didn't see my baby as much as I should. You know? This is worse. This is worse. Often sebenza wena slave. Slave is mad. Yeah. My new name is Slave Skakamad. Slave Skakamad. That's my new name, eh? Slave Skakamad.
So is it spelled QH or QA?
Qamata.
Does she have another name?
Does not do my another name?
Does he?
Does it? Does he need another name? No.
He needs an English name.
Hi. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. EP Valk.
Violence! Like Bopisa! I told you I stay at the police station.
Hold your mind.
And yabona lo yenzayo lo
So,
ngizokubopisa.
go police station.
I'm going to. That is a crime that you just did.
They
That is a crime that you just did.
What did you do?
He added sugar.
I'd like to describe A.S.T.O as a universal travel collection. We design clothes that are meant to be unapologetically modern African, proudly cultural, super bold in each and every space that they appear in. I'm a space traveler. I often do travel
enjoy traveling by flight. Sometimes I don't. But if I'm in a flight, it don't mean that I have to compromise the way that I look. I appear in my proud attire and make sure that I express myself by all means. I would like people to ultimately know that MAXHOSA is a brand that has a conviction to make an economic impact in Africa, to make a psychological paradigm shift in Africa, to change the negative perception about culture in Africa. MAXHOSA is a brand that is meant to demystify all negative thoughts towards black narratives. So A.S.T.O ultimately means to me that I'm wearing what will be worn in the future and projecting it now.
How would we look like in the future? But we are in the future. The future is tomorrow. So how would I look like in the next season? You know, we don't want to keep this as a cultural brand where we do very traditional wax print, but like our patterns can live on anything, right? So the idea is, how would I look like in Paris, also looking very fashionable, very current, but African at the same time, you know?
What we travel with is time. As people, as Africans, as a species, that's what we have as a form of traveling, and time is one of the things that takes us from one spot to another. You can imagine the people that were standing at this very spot that we're standing in, you know. You can imagine what they were doing 100 years from now, or what they were like 100 years ago, you know. So it's like finding that perspective about life, that it's not only about like the sci-fi, the fictional way of it, but then the realism within it, that as a species, as a race of our own, like we've been traveling and we've been progressing. Yeah.
Maintaining the MAXHOSA-ness. As a designer, your job is to have an understanding of what the brand is. It took me a very long time to understand how that Duma pairs colors, number one. So the way that someone can pair an orange, red, and yellow can be very, very different. Like, there are so many ways of pairing the very same colors, and it's just about choosing certain colors. So I think it's about trying to understand the design aesthetic of the brand and like sort of ingraining it in yourself. And then also what I find is very important to MAXHOSA and just MAXHOSA's design language or just visual language is African culture.
How you feel, son? When I dance, son? How you feel, son? You're not dancing. How you feel, son? You're not dancing. How you feel, son? You're not dancing. How you feel, son? You feeling like tan, diggy diggy tan tan. We not dancing.